The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night, and you're listening to Carl Hutchinson on the PSH radio show on Parasearch Network. First of all, I'll just say my lovely co-host Samantha, or Sam, sadly can't make it this evening, so I am flying solo. So I do apologise if I cock any of this studio lark up. So it's just little old me. But I am joined this evening by a very good friend of mine, speaker at last year's Sage Paracon, a very, very interesting gentleman, and all-round good person, and that is Mr. Calvin Von Crush. Good evening, Calvin.
Hey, Carl, thank you so much for having me aboard.
Not a problem. It's always a pleasure to spend some time chatting to yourself. Just for the people out there that might have been living under a rock or didn't get the chance to come and see you at last year's SageCon, can you just give a quick overview of your basically what you're about, who you are?
Yeah, so I've only been working in the paranormal field for a couple of years, but I do two different things. One, I serve on the board of the Talking Board Historical Society. I'm one of the founding members since 2013, and are a historical society devoted to the history and preservation of Ouija and talking boards. And on top of that, I believe I have one of the largest collections in the world of items related to occult and paranormal history. And Ouija boards are just a small part of that.
That's great. So I'm going to do the interview two ways. First of all, I'm going to talk about what your position and what you do with the Talking Board Association, because I find the whole aspect of that, I've been some amazing people like Karen, Mr. Murch, and obviously yourself, who all are members of the Talking Board Society. Can you just, because a lot of people, I think there's people out there, it's the same thing about everybody thinks a Hoover is what a Hoover is, but Hoover's a brand. Same right. When it comes to Ouija. Ouija is technically a brand or name or a trademark name of the device, but the actual history behind it, that's when it comes into the talking boards and the Talking Board Society. That's what they call. So they look at all aspects. So they just you guys don't just concentrate on one or the other side, do you?
Correct. So the focal states that Ouija board actually named itself during a Ouija board session, and a strong medium named Helen Peters Roseworthy was wearing a locket that said Ouija. And when the boards asked what it wanted to be called, it spelled out Ouija. They turned to Helen and they asked her what it meant, and she said it meant good luck. So Ouija actually means good luck. And you can see how it's not an ominous thing at all. It never was a negative thing. It always started off as something fun. And because this game really took a foothold in American culture and became such a cherished pastime, there were other people who wanted to take part of that pie. They wanted to make their own money, and that's where you came up with all these Ouija imposters. There were other game companies who wanted to make one similar, or different companies who claimed that their board was the better one. Their board would be the one that gets stronger messages. You can see this throughout history with everything from running shoes to cars. There's always going to be competition.
Mm-hmm. So, because you got Talking Board Society did something amazing. You've done, obviously, when it comes to the founders of the Ouija board, etc. You guys have raised money to put headstones on a couple of the key people to do with Ouija boards. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We have put up 2 headstones to date. The first one was actually well before we were ever incorporated. I wasn't even a part of it. It was for Elijah Bond in Baltimore, and he was the first patent owner of the Ouija board. And his grave actually looks like a Ouija board. It's in Baltimore. It's fantastic. And the second one we put up was for Helen, the woman who named the Ouija board, and she's over in Denver. We also install monuments where we can in important buildings for Ouija history, places that used to make Ouija boards that were factories.
Oh, cool. And obviously, you last year, you guys at Talking Board Society came up with the concept of the world's biggest Ouija board, which was put on display in Salem on the Green.
Yes, sir. Man, homework. You know exactly what's going on. So one of our directors, Rick Schreck, had this wild idea that he wanted to make the world's largest Ouija board. Somebody else had already built one on the top of their roof of a haunted hotel, allegedly haunted hotel. And Rick had no choice but to make it twice that size.
Yeah.
To beat the record, and we put it together over 2 or 3 days on Salem Common in the month of October, because of course, what else would we do?
Where else would you put it?
Backbreaking work, but it was one of the most rewarding experiences we've done with the TBHS because it got so much press, and we are still finding new articles about it. I get messages all the time on Facebook of new articles that are popping up on different sites about this massive Ouija board, both positive and negative, which is always good to me.
The thing that fascinated me particularly about that, when I was watching some of the lives that Karen did and seeing and looking at it, was the size of the planchette, because that thing alone took about 4 or 5 people to actually carry it, and it actually worked, didn't it? You could actually...
we had wheels on it, and you could just push it with one hand. That's how good those wheels were. For anyone who's listening, it was about the size of a Honda Civic.
Yeah. It was big.
Small hatchback car.
Yeah. It fascinates me when obviously for the history and what you guys do at the Talking Board Association, and obviously the passion that you guys have, because speaking to the 3 of you guys that I've been lucky enough to be able to talk to, and you just see the passion behind what you guys do. For you personally, how many boards do you have?
I haven't counted in forever, and my go-to number that I've been saying for the past little while has always been like 100. I've got something around there.
What's the oldest?
That's a really, really good question, Carl. So I was given one as a gift from Bob Murch that we think might be from the 1850s. Okay. Now, the funny thing about that, the Ouija board itself wasn't patented until 1892.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very, very, very early talking board.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why we think it's from the 1850s is because it was found with a bunch of other items from that time.
Okay.
So.
And what's the why do you? How do I put this? With that in mind, obviously with the date difference between it when it was first patented, do you think it was like a prototype, or was it a different form of it?
Yeah, it's got a different layout than the traditional Ouija board.
Mhm.
So we do think it was a different type. This is a homemade board. This is somebody that was just sitting around and made it themselves. It's got backwards letters in some spots, so it's curious as to whether or not this person might have, had a full grasp of the alphabet.
Mhm.
It looks like it was just used on like an old cutting board.
Okay.
People used to use what they had on hand to make things, and this is a great example of that.
Wow, that's really, because that's always fascinates me, because the distinctive that everybody knows the layout, ABC, in a slight arc, and then you got yes, no's, and all that sort of stuff, and it's quite like everybody when they see it knows exactly that's a layout of a Ouija board, and it's quite interesting to hear that. Obviously, I've spoken to Karen a few times as well, and she says you can literally make a Ouija board or talking board out of anything, like cut bits of paper or this, that, and the other. And listening to yours and Karen's talk at Sage Paragon it fascinates me the way different formats used to appear on boards, the way the letters were, and obviously the famous set out pattern. But you also brought some other interesting items to Sage Paragon. You brought what I initially thought was something like automated writing with the little wheels.
The plant automatic writing planchettes, 100%.
And that was that one you brought as a replica, but when you actually told me it's original and how old it was, and it was amazing that you could actually you physically just hands on and touch it.
Yeah, so planchettes predate the Ouija board by 4 years. They were invented in 1853. And there was no real way to, patent that concept. So there is a wide variety of those, too. Different sizes, different shapes, different colors. And they all claimed, they were the best as well. They were a national sensation, too, at one point. But they never really took as strong of a foothold as Ouija did. And one of the reasons is because Ouija is just so much easier to use to get messages because the alphabet is right there.
Okay. And there was another item that you were talking, which you had with you as well, but I didn't get a chance to actually have a look at it myself. And that was something like, is it called a spirit trumpet?
Yeah. Spirit trumpets are a spirit communication device used in a form of physical mediumship called trumpet mediumship. And allegedly, what we're supposed to do is they were supposed to float around the room, and ectoplasm, which is a material that is supposed to be the physical manifestation of spirit, would come out of a spirit medium and attach to the spirit trumpet, form a voice box, and amplify the voices of the dead. So it's a pretty radical, far-fetched concept that these things would be used with.
Yeah, because it's obviously the Victorian science, the whole area of the Victorian science is you look at it and you just think of all these ideas, and then obviously the showmanship that they used to have, and some of the famous ones that like did stage shows, and the audience thought they were communicating with this, that, and the other, and but there was a lot of showmanship and like vaudeville type of acts going on with it, because back in the day they used to be the whole of like there'd be fishing wire and there'd be stooges, etc., and all these things were just it was just a complete and utter like nowadays you go to the cinema or you go out, whatever. Back in the day, they used to then go to these mediums and for the thrill of the show.
We actually had seances in the White House. Abraham Lincoln's wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, was a spiritualist. They had lost many children at young ages, and they were almost in a constant state of mourning. And to them, seances were a form of grief counseling. You could have a medium come into your house and you might get a message from one of your loved ones that crossed over.
Yeah. And also the other famous that basically surrounded her whole life with mediumship is the Winchester. And the Winchester Mystery House, the lady that used to literally build the house following seances.
Carl, I'm glad that story is believed to be constructed by a few people.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. That's kind of like the folklore behind it. But I've been there. Yeah. And the room they call the seance room would not be a room used for seances.
And why would that be? Is it the wrong shape, wrong design?
Yeah, it's the wrong design. Seances were complete darkness, and this room had so many windows. Mm. It was actually had windows on all four sides, north, south, east, and west. And the person telling the story said it was for calling the spirits from all directions.
Okay.
Now, from anything I know about seances, that just doesn't compute, especially with ectoplasm, like we're talking about. Ectoplasm was said to disappear with any kind of light because it was photosensitive. Mm. So to cover these windows, which were up tall, they weren't down low where you could just put a curtain over it. Even at night, it would still let some light in when you've got moon and stuff like that. It struck me funny. I have reason to believe that story is most likely constructed just to help aid in the torch trade.
This is what we'll come on to, because obviously you've member of the Talking Board Society. You also have a deep fascination into the alternate paranormal side, but you also come from an area which is fascinating, particularly in this industry, where you kind of like a skeptic / non-believer area of it, and you look at how to debunk or look at another side of things, like you just said about everybody's the Winchester Mystery House was designed, blah 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 blah. But then you then look at it through a different set of eyes and say, well, that room's wrong because of this. And this is the fascinating thing about yourself, Calvin, which I just absolutely love talking to you. You come through with so many different theories backed up, and it's the way you describe things and the knowledge you have.
That's very kind of you to say. I always say that I hate an armchair skeptic. I don't like the skeptics who just sit at home and pound keyboards and tell people who believe in anything that they're stupid or that they shouldn't believe in something. Mm-hmm. So when there is something that has such a resounding voice in the paranormal community, like the Winchester House, which is legendary, why wouldn't I get off of my ass and go see it for myself?
Absolutely, yeah.
I would love to go on every paranormal investigation with local groups as I could. But the matter is I've tried to get involved with local groups here, and because of my association with Ouija boards and because I don't believe, I have not been welcome.
Yeah, I can understand that we've spoken in the past about that. You're sort of in the middle. You've got the people that won't touch you because of your beliefs, and your Talking Board Association about the whole Hollywood myth about Ouija boards, saying they're the devil's instrument and they was dangerous and this, that, and the other, which I think is all hyped up by the, as I call it, the Hollywood aspect of it, where a friend of a friend's Ouija board and it said die, and then they buried it and it burnt it, stripped it, and then kept on reappearing. That whole Hollywood side of it. And then you've obviously got on the flip side of that, you've got the people who believe and think everything is paranormal. They won't talk to you because you're a non-believer and that you can back up what you're saying, etc., etc. So you must, for yourself, in some aspects, you're piggy in the middle, aren't you?
Yes, I understand it, Carl. I really do. I think there's so many skeptics out there that are combative. They just want to pick a fight.
Yeah,
and that's not me at all. While I don't believe ghosts are out there, I know I'm not going to see one. I'm at ground zero. If I'm not in the haunted place, how am I supposed to see a ghost? So I want to be welcome on investigations. I want to be able to belong. The reason for me to pick a fight. And I've been on an investigation with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
You vouch for that. Like I'm there carrying equipment and working as hard just as everybody else.
Yeah, I must have when you came over and we went on a little private investigation at Draco Tunnels with Dana and Greg and a couple of the others with MJ. I didn't have any issues or any qualms because you're a non-believer. What I want to do is I want to be able to show you, or be able to give you an experience, the experiences I've had at that place. And I know that particular night we had some interesting stuff happen. And it was a pleasure to actually have you and get to have you actually on the investigation, because as I've always said, there's nobody in this field I would say is an expert. There's no expert in the power, because everybody's learning and everybody can learn from everybody else. Whether you've been in the industry 5 minutes or 50 years, somebody can give you a bit of information where you stop and think, hang on, that's a good way of thinking about it. I'm going to use that, or I'm going to take that on board. And that's, I think, where you came on board with some of the ways you look at potentially what is happening, where you're coming from, and then that helps me learn and helps everybody else learn. So I think there's a place for everybody in this industry. So
yeah, one of the things I think the most is that a big hole in my arsenal of skepticism is I don't know as much about the tech as I'd like. I mean, some of the tech that you guys use, I have no idea about EMF fields, anything like that. It's just beyond my scope of study. I focus more on the psychology of belief. I don't know anything about the physical realm of how people believe spirits manifest. So I think that's important. Like you said, to learn from each other. I learned so much that night.
Yeah, one thing is make sure because that was chuffing cold. So we the other side, obviously, that you guys that you do is obviously the occult side, which I'll be honest, I was, because of what I do, I was like, so what we're talking about occult, and then obviously listening to you and seeing some of the objects that you do, but you focus on some really dark backstories, and then you sort of explain them in a way. Can you just tell our lovely listeners about that side of what you do, about the occult side and some of the items that you have and some of the backstories that you have?
Yeah, so I've adopted the moniker the Occult Collector. I've gotten known for that. That's what I go for on Instagram, and I have a show on Amazon Prime called The Occult Collector. And for anyone who's unaware, occult sounds like a scary word, but it's Latin. It just means unseen. So to me, anything unseen in the supernatural realm has everything to do with cryptozoology, spirit communication, UFOs. psychic phenomena, all those bizarre subject matters that I grew up just so thirsty to learn about. And as I got older, I really wanted to, tempt fate and welcome these objects into my house and give myself every chance to experience something otherworldly. So that's why I really started collecting. And one of the first things I started collecting was Ouija boards. Just because Ouija boards have such a bad reputation, I thought if there was any way for me to see a spirit, it had to be if I had a wall full of Ouija boards, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had no choice but to manifest and come through. It'd be like a big portal.
True.
So these items that have these dark pasts, though, I find that they're no more than their stories.
Yeah.
Some of them, don't get me wrong, look amazing. Shrunken heads, I've got the one shrunken head that's real, and I've got a couple that are fakes, but they're so ominous looking sitting on a shelf. I love that look. My whole house is spooky and creepy. It looks like Halloween year round. But the mythology behind them, I think, is way more important than the aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And when it comes to the shrunken heads, they look cool. I know that's probably politically incorrect to say now, but I don't care. I think they look literally. I think they look so cool. Yes, it's a person's head, which is really sad. Somebody lost their life to do that, but they do look cool. I'm sorry, just putting that out there.
If they didn't look, they wouldn't be in museums.
Exactly. That. What was the you had also some interesting photos as well of other items that you brought over to Sage this year.
I did. I brought some spirit photos with me, and we could tell that they were clearly fakes. But at the point of conception of those photographs, people believed they were real.
Well, the whole thing about cheesecloth to produce ectoplasm in photos during the Victorian and things like that. And nowadays, using modern technology, you just look at the picture and you can see straight away that it's fake. But back in those days, people would see that and they would believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it just fascinates me, that side of it. So how long have you been doing the occult side of it, Carl?
I've been collecting for about 10 years now, Carl.
What would you say out your whole collection would be your most prized, weird item?
I get asked that all the time, and it's so hard for me to say. I think the whole collection in itself is kind of like a living entity. Like it's part of me. Like collecting to me is kind of like an anxiety disorder. You always want one more piece. You're always chasing that next high. It's like being a junkie, man. Like I want to find something new. And usually that new piece is your favorite for just a minute. Just a minute, Carl, to find another new one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's hard for me to say. I know I have ones that make me smile a little bit more than the others, but nothing's like more a favorite than the other. That's like asking someone to say, hey, who's your favorite kid?
That's true. But obviously you have something which I didn't even know existed until I got to know you, and that's your two-headed turtle.
Oh, you know what? If we're counting them as part of the collection, I forget. Leonard and Sheldon are my baby boys. My two-headed conjoined map turtle. They've got 2 heads, 6 legs. I do love them very, very dearly. And
you would tell me they have personalities.
They do. Leonard is very, very gentle. You can pet him and stuff like that. You can tug on his little legs and he doesn't get too upset. But Sheldon, he is full of piss and vinegar, let me tell you. he will try and bite you. He will bite his own leg in the process of trying to bite you. He just does not want to be associated with any human being.
Because I never realised that type of two-headed turtle basically happened in the world, and there's like, obviously it was crazy. It was like, it blew my mind. I was, what do you mean you got a two-headed turtle? I was just completely blown away by that. But you were telling me about them. Obviously, you told me about their different personalities, etc., etc. And that just sums up yourself, Carolyn, because you have such a passion for, obviously, the turtles, Sheldon and God, you just told me Sheldon
Leonard
from the Big Bang Theory, because that's something I'm going to come on to. Is your other passions in a second. But it does really sort of sum you up. You're a lovable guy, and you do have this like side to you where obviously the talking board, the occult stuff, and obviously you're a tattooist as well. You're in a band. You were the easiest person to pick out for coming through Heathrow, which helped me that day. But it just fascinates me. This is something why I do the radio. I do help out Paranormal, is because I get to chat and talk to and get to know people such as yourself. And there's no other industry where we have characters and not expertise, but knowledge. So much knowledge coming to people, and that's what I love. I love about it is talking to somebody that can basically go past the whole "don't you know who I am" type of person to actually the people that are genuinely interested, want to talk to you, and are happy to sit there hours upon hours upon hours over maybe a few little drinky poos and just talk about our passions, because obviously you've got so many passions as well, and this is what the knowledge you've got on all sorts of subjects such as UFOs and cryptos, etc., because it comes under that band of the occult, or because that's what I call the paranormal side of it, because it's unexplained. And the passion that you have for these subjects just lights up the room. I think that's why you were such a big success at Sage Paracon, is people could see that you were genuinely into it and genuinely had this passion of telling the stories behind items, covering your all sides of the occult, etc., etc.
Yeah, so there's the saying of like, find your tribe. That's when you really go. And I think MJ really hit it, calling it the Sage Tribe. Because when you find like-minded people who really want to learn or share each other's knowledge, that's when you really see that energy in a room, like you're saying. I never would have thought when I was a little kid reading books about that one day I would be a room full of people who wanted to learn what was in my head, or that I would even be going into a room full of people who also loved ghosts as much as I did.
Yeah.
The culture behind the paranormal in the past couple of years, Carl, and you've seen it too. Look at the first Paracon compared to the last Paracon.
Oh, absolutely. It was like, we had a good turnout for the first one, and I was blown away by that. And I actually did a talk on the first one, and that was my first sort of exposure into talking about stuff in front of people and not on the radio when I'm just basically talking into a screen. And I was blown away. But then over the years, like 2, 4, and into 5, I was amazed. The first day of last year, I'd set up Claire Hinks. She was the first talker on. And usually the first speaker on, because people are usually going around the vendors area, etc., etc. And as I was obviously setting up the laptops, you look up, and I then realised the room was nearly full. And I was like, wow. and just looking back at previous years, and that's exactly what you were saying. Every single speaker nearly there was hardly any space left in the room.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible to be in an environment where you've got like-minded people such as yourself talking about stuff that makes people excited in what our own passions are. And that's, you can see that when you're talking to you on some of the subjects in some of the areas, the passion, and it's just great. It's how you learn, etc. So I think that's the key to it. What are you? You've got any more gigs lined up? Are you talking on any more conventions, or do you? I know the convention season's not really started yet. Normally kicks off about April time over in America. Have you got anything like for the year?
The only one that I'm really in this year is Michigan Paracon.
Yeah,
I believe I'm going to be representing the TBHS.
Cool.
So I'll be going there as the occult collector. I'll be going there as the TBHS. We're not sure exactly what we're going to be doing there yet, but we hopefully will have a pretty big surprise. And I do mean big. I can't say much more, but size does matter, and this one might be a pretty big endeavor on our half. It's not Ouijazilla. I'll tell everybody that. We did talk about setting it up there, but the casino doesn't want us setting up in the parking lot. So we tried, guys. We really did, but it's not going to work out.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there because I'm coming over for that one. So. Oh
yeah. Oh, you can't stay away from a casino, can you?
No, I'm sorry. I can't. I do love and I'm off to New Orleans in 30 days, and I've just found out the hotel I'm staying at before I meet everybody else. I meet MJ and the gang. Just happens to. I didn't know this when I booked it. Just happens to be next to the only casino in New Orleans. So I think I might the first day I might be having a little bit of a wander around. So
the best plate of food I've ever had in my life, from first bite to last bite, was in New Orleans.
I'm looking forward to it. Have you got any like places I should go to from your trips?
When I went to New Orleans, I actually had a horrible time. It was storming the whole time. The traffic was horrible. But I got to tell you, I'm ready to give it another shot. I wish I was going with you guys. You guys have Bloody Mary, who's going to be your tour guide, correct? She's going to be you guys around?
Yeah. 10 days of be nice for somebody else to drive people around, so I can actually relax in the back of a minibus instead of driving, which will be a novelty. But yeah, I'm looking forward. And I wish I could pop down and say hello. So, but there'll be more chances to meet up in the year anyway. So we'll definitely be hooking up either this side and your side of the pond, depending on how it all works out.
Absolutely.
So obviously, you're the side of it is that you're also a tattooist, and you're in a band as well.
Yes.
Drummer?
No, bass player. I play bass and I sing.
Yeah. Name of your band?
Room 21. It's named after a Misfits song called Hotel. They talk about Room 21.
Yeah. So anybody listening, check them out. They're on YouTube. Go and give them a follow.
We're on YouTube right now.
Okay.
But I'm working on a full-length album right now. So I actually go back into the studio later today to record more.
Yep. So anybody listening, go and check them out. And go and give you some radio support to Calvin and the rest of the band. And obviously the tattooist, some of the images you post, some of the tattoos you do, they're just incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. So worlds kind of collide, and I really like doing spooky imagery. Like I do, I love the paranormal, so I try to bring that over into tattooing. And I love doing things related to Halloween and monsters and ghosts. And yesterday I actually just did a ghost carrying a jack-o'-lantern. So It's nice when I can take everything and put it into one big ball. And
Well, exactly, because we've had tattooists over Sage Paracon in the past, and it fits in well with it. So I think why not? It's a blend. I think you'll find most people in the paranormal have got a tattoo of some sort. Whether it's good ones, bad ones, beautiful ones, horrible ones, everybody's got some sort of form of ink on them. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You can everything you do, you can bundle into one big ball, and it all links in. So you say you're going to going to be at Michigan Paracon in August, which is great. Are you doing any more events, or is that the only one at the moment?
that's the only one I have on the agenda.
Okay.
Which is biggest and best in the U.S.
Mm.
So
it is the biggest convention.
If you're not there, you're pretty square.
Absolutely, and the that they have.
It's the best of the best.
Yeah, it's the who's who of the paranormal, whether it's from authors, actors, paranormal investigators on TV, like John Zaffis and like Grant Wilson, you name it, they're on there, and obviously you're going to be part of it. Our lovely MJ's also going to be speaking over there as well, which is going to be and I know tickets are still available. It's up in Michigan, in Sensu something or other. That's really bad because I'm actually going and I can't remember the name of where I'm going to.
Carl, I'm going to be working it, and I don't even know what town it's in. I just get on the airplane.
Yeah.
Do you remember I didn't know thing until you showed me pictures?
Yeah, it was great. I was driving. I picked Calvin up and Greg and Dana and Bloody Mary. And that's one thing I will say. Seeing Bloody Mary across Heathrow Oval Lounge at about 7 o'clock in the morning, you do get some funny looks. But we were driving up and we were having